We tend to think of pain as just a signal, right? Something goes wrong, an alarm bell rings. But it's so much more than that. It's a story, a really complex, vivid, and deeply personal story that our brain creates. So let's dive right into the neuroscience behind your brain's incredible role as master storyteller.
Okay, first question for you. Ever wonder why rubbing a bump actually makes it feel better? You know you do it, we all do it instinctively. Or about this one, why does a bad mood seem to make that nagging pain feel so much worse? People say, oh, it's all in your head. And, well, they're not wrong. It literally is, just probably not in the way they mean.
And that brings us to the single most important idea we're going to talk about today. This is the big one. Pain isn't actually in your body. It's a perception created by your brain. It's an experience that your brain constructs, it evaluates, and ultimately, it creates.
All right, so to really get this, let's trace that story right from the very beginning. Let's start with section 1, the spark of pain, where it all begins. So it all kicks off with these things called nociceptors. Think of them as the nervous system's frontline security guards. They're not your average nerve endings. No, they're highly specialized detectors on the lookout for anything that could be damaging. We're talking extreme heat, way too much pressure, or nasty chemicals. Now, what's really cool is that these security guards have 2 different ways of phoning in a report. Just think about the last time you stubbed your toe. Brutal, I know. That first super sharp, immediate youch! That message is delivered by A-delta fibers. They're like an express train, fast and myelinated, screaming emergency to your spinal cord. But what about that dull, throbbing ache that hangs around afterwards? Yeah, that's the C fibers. They're the slow, unmyelinated local train delivering the follow-up report. 2 totally different fibers giving us 2 totally different kinds of pain. Okay, so the signal is sent. Let's follow it to the next stop. We're moving on to section 2, the spinal cord gate. And this is so important because this isn't just a simple relay station. It's the very first checkpoint where that pain story can actually be changed or edited. This is where we get to the famous gate control theory of pain, which explains so much. Here's the deal. That slow, throbbing signal from the C fibers, the ache, it arrives at the spinal cord and basically opens a gate, letting the pain message head on up to the brain. But remember when we asked why rubbing a bump helps? When you rub it, you send a totally different signal, a non-painful touch signal, along these big, fast A-beta fibers. This touch signal activates a special kind of neuron. Think of it like a bouncer at a club. This bouncer steps in and closes the gate on the pain signal, blocking it from getting through. It's just this elegant piece of neural wiring, and it's the reason that simple act of rubbing an injury actually works. All right, so let's say a signal makes it past that gate in the spinal cord. It's on its way to the brain. But here's the thing. It doesn't just take a single superhighway. It splits. This brings us to section 3, the 2 lanes of pain. So that pain signal is now traveling along 2 completely different pathways, answering 2 totally different questions. First, you've got the sensory discriminative pathway. This one is all business. It shoots up to the somatosensory cortex, which is like the brain's body map, and it answers the simple question, where does it hurt? Think of it as the GPS of pain. It's just about location. But then you have the affective motivational pathway. This one goes to the emotional centers of your brain, the amygdala, the insula, and it answers a very different question. How badly does this hurt? This is the ouch factor, the emotional side of pain, the part that makes it feel awful and makes you want it to stop. And this all leads us to the main event, the absolute heart of the matter. Section 4, the brain's control room. Because here's the big reveal. Your brain isn't just passively receiving these pain signals. It's not just an audience watching a play. No, your brain is the director of the entire show. That's right. It's incredible, but your brain has its own built-in, top-down, pain-killing system. It has a volume knob, and it can actively decide to turn down the intensity of incoming pain signals. So how does it do this? It uses something called descending pathways. These are nerve highways that run from the brain, from areas like the periaqueductal gray, all the way back down to the spinal cord, right back to that gate we were just talking about. And when they get there, they release the body's very own natural painkillers. You've heard of them, endorphins. These are endogenous opioids that tell that gatekeeper to shut things down. It is an absolutely powerful top-down control system. But what happens when this beautifully intricate system breaks? This is where things can get really difficult. Welcome to Section 5, when pain becomes chronic, or what I like to call a faulty alarm. You see, sometimes the system can get stuck in the on position. The pain signals have been firing for so long and so intensely that the nervous system basically learns to be in pain. I love this quote from Dr. Stephen Stale, who says it undergoes a diabolical learning. The whole system becomes sensitized and it starts amplifying pain signals even when there's no new injury happening. It's a faulty alarm that just won't stop ringing long after the fire has been put out.
And this gets at a really critical distinction between different types of pain. On the one hand, you have nociceptive pain. Think of a sprained ankle. That's a normal, healthy response to an injury. The alarm system is working exactly as it should. But then there's neuropathic pain, and this is totally different. This is when the alarm system itself is broken. The nervous system is malfunctioning. The pain isn't a symptom of a problem anymore. The pain is the problem. And the long-term consequences of this faulty alarm can be, well, they're profound. Just look at this number right here. Some studies have found that patients with chronic back pain can have a 5 to 11% reduction in gray matter in their prefrontal cortex. Let that sink in. This isn't just a feeling. Chronic pain can literally, physically change the structure of your brain.
So that sounds pretty bleak, right? But here's the question. Can this diabolical learning be unlearned? Can the brain actually be rewired? Well, let's end this on a much more hopeful note. Let's talk about Section 6, rewiring the pain system with modern treatments.
Now, this is fascinating. You might wonder why antidepressants are sometimes used to treat pain. Well, a certain class called SNRIs are a great example. Remember those descending pathways, the brain's very own pain suppression system? Well, these drugs boost the key neurotransmitters, serotonin and norepinephrine, that make that system work. So in effect, it's like reaching into the brain's control room and turning up the volume on your natural, built-in pain relief. Then there are other types of medications, like pregabalin and gabapentin, and they take a different approach. They go right to the source of that faulty alarm, those overexcited, sensitized nerves that are just screaming in neuropathic pain. These drugs basically latch onto the nerve cells and reduce the release of the chemicals that are making them fire so much. It's like telling those haywire nerves to just quiet down. And all of this brings us right back to where we started. Pain isn't some raw, objective signal from your body. It's a story the brain writes using sensory input, yes, but also your emotions, your memories, the entire context of your life. So if pain really is a story our brain tells itself, it leaves us with one final, powerful thought. What if we can help it write a better one?